Welcome back. The last session we had discussed about customer lifetime value and customer portfolio management, trying to assess different ways in which you can evaluate different customer groups, and thereby you can have different approaches by approaches in the digital marketing campaigns that you run for different groups. We discussed about different ways in which portfolio management can happen. We discussed specifically about segmentation. We discussed about the projection of anticipated sales in the coming year. We discussed about recency, frequency and monetary levels based approaches. We discussed about customer lifetime value, and we had seen how customer lifetime value is a very effective tool. Now in this session we are specifically going to discuss about attribution models. Now one key problem or one key challenge that many marketers face is when customers start using multiple channels. Say for example, consider this example here. We are talking about an AIDA framework: awareness, interest, desire, action and advocacy. Now consider for example the consumer is interested in buying a mobile phone. Now the consumer might start this search from a search engine. So the consumer has now gone to a search engine and typed the key terms of buy cheap mobile phone or buy smartphone, etc. The consumer has now been shown a few advertisements. Now every time the advertisement is shown, there is a propensity that the customer clicks on that advertisement, comes into the landing page, which might be an e-commerce page. The customer reads through a lot of product information on that page, but decides that the customer doesn't want to necessarily buy the product. So what happens next? The customer is now, the e-commerce company knows that this is the customer who has come through the landing page through the search engine marketing campaign that was run by the company, but the customer hasn't made the purchase. So the immediate next thing that the company would do is to run a remarketing campaign wherein native advertisements are shown on social media campaigns. So these are the campaigns, or these are the advertisements you would see about products and services on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, etc. after you have gone and browsed through a certain product on a website, mostly an e-commerce platform. So the customer started off the search from a search engine. He used PPC advertisement or Google AdWords or any of these pay-per-click advertisement platforms. The customer then was shown a set of advertisements on social media through remarketing. But even when the customer was shown remarketing campaigns, the customer clicked on it, but the customer decided not to complete the purchase process because it takes time for the customer to go through the entire stages of the AIDA framework. So in the awareness stage, the customer used search engines and remarketing campaigns. Then the customer was interested in a certain product, so the customer now started searching for that specific product. Again the customer went into search engines. The customer found a lot of review videos on YouTube, so the customer went into looking at all these review videos, and at the end of every review video or every unboxing video that the customer finds for a smartphone or for a mobile phone, there might be a few links provided by the reviewer in the description, and many a times these are part of the affiliate programs run by e-commerce platforms. So now the customer has also clicked into the affiliate program, thereby the e-commerce platform knows that the customer has now been part of the affiliate campaign as well, or the affiliate program as well. So the recommender or the influencer is now claiming that the customer has come through this channel. So this customer, before the customer makes the purchase process, might have gone through a search engine, to remarketing campaigns, to a lot of affiliate platforms. The customer might have also been sent a lot of emails. The customer would have used links on these email campaigns that have been sent across. So in the entire journey that the customer takes, right from awareness all the way to action or purchasing the product, the customer would have used multiple channels. In this specific example, we discussed how the customer would have used search engines, he would have used remarketing, he would have used affiliates, he would have used emails, he would have used n number of other platforms. Now one problem that marketers face is trying to attribute which of these platforms or which of these channels was responsible for the end sale that happened or the end conversion that happened. Consider that a customer has gone through all different channels, and finally one fine day, maybe a week later, the customer decided that now it is time that I have made my purchase decision. This is the brand of product that I want, this is the model of the mobile phone that I want, this is the kind of coupons that are available in coupon sites. So I am going to use these coupons, and I am going to use this offer that is provided by such and such e-commerce platform, and I am going to buy this phone right now. So this customer has used all of these different channels. How does the e-commerce platform, or how does the digital marketing campaign manager know specifically which of these campaign was responsible for what kind of conversion, and what is the weight that should be assigned to each of these channels. That is the specific problem of attribution that we are going to discuss in this session. You can think about it for yourself. How easy is it for you to understand if there are a few million customers who start using multiple channels? How is that you are now going to be able to identify the relative importance of each of these channels? We discussed about return on investment, we discussed about customer lifetime value, we discussed about all different matrices that you can use with respect to analytics on Google Analytics or AdWords or AdSense or Google Display Networks, etc. In many of these cases, we talked about how each of these campaigns can be looked at in isolation. So we discussed about specific scenarios of search engine marketing, but while calculating return on investment, the three scenarios that we discussed in the previous sessions, we discussed about only the customer who has come through the search engine marketing campaign or only come from search ads alone. But when the customer comes from multiple channels, where is that you will attribute this conversion, or where is that you will attribute the sale to, is a difficult question to answer. To give you a simpler example, consider that the customer walks into a physical retail store. The customer goes to a salesperson whose name is, say for example, Sandeep, and Sandeep is the one who is now convincing the customer that you have to buy this mobile phone has such and such features, and this mobile phone has all these benefits that you are looking for. At the end of the day, when the customer makes that purchase, you know that it was Sandeep who was able to provide all the information to the customer, because of which now the customer has purchased the product. Now because Sandeep was able to convince the customer, persuade the customer and make the sale, you know that this sale can be attributed to Sandeep and the sales commission can be provided to Sandeep. But think of the case where there are 10 different salespeople who provide different sets of information. There is one salesperson who says that, okay, now you have come to the store, let me show you the mobile phone area and let me talk to you about a little bit about the display. Another salesperson comes and talks about the battery. Another salesperson comes and talks about the price. Another salesperson comes and talks about the guarantee. Now who do you think is the salesperson who was responsible for the sale? Becomes a very difficult question. So that is exactly what we try to do with attribution models, and that is what we are going to discuss in this session. There are different ways in which you can actually attribute a conversion or a sale to different channels that are out there. Now one of the simpler ways, I will start off with simpler ways of how we can attribute the role of specific channels, and then we will come into some more comprehensive, more robust methods of doing this. The first and most simple way of attributing a sale is by looking into the last interaction. So in this case, we found that the customer started off with the search engine, then the customer went into a remarketing campaign, then the customer was sent emails, so customer went into email campaigns. Finally the customer went into looking at into unboxing videos on YouTube or such platforms, and came into an affiliate platform and thereby converted to buying the product. So you can attribute 100% of all of the sale to the last interaction that the customer had, in this case to the affiliate program that you have, or to the person who was providing that content on YouTube and the affiliate link that was provided alongside, and thereby you can say that it is that affiliate who has given the customer the required amount of information for the customer to make that purchase, and thereby all the credit is now provided to the person or the channel that was the last interaction channel for the customer. The logic here is that the customer, although the customer was thinking about the process, although the customer was going through a lot of different iterations in their mind, the customer was still not interested in buying the product until the customer came to that last interaction. So the last interaction can be given all the merit. But think about it intuitively, is this a very reasonable approach? Might not be. So there are other approaches that we will discuss, but the first one is last interaction based attribution. So the last interaction is given all credit or all merit of the conversion. Another one is the first interaction, because oftentimes it is the first impression that the customer gets about a certain product that puts the product into the customer's mind, and thereby starts the entire process of decision making. So rather than looking at the last interaction, you might start off with the first interaction. So what was the channel where the customer had the first interaction? That will be the channel that will get all the benefit or all the credit for that conversion, or the entire conversion will be attributed to the first interaction that the customer had. So although in this example the customer started with a search engine, went into remarketing, went into email campaigns, went into affiliates, you will still provide all the credit for this conversion to the search engine that the customer initially interacted with, because it was the search engine that started off with the entire process of putting this product into the customer's mind, putting this product into the consideration set of the customer. So hence the search engine marketing campaign should get all the credit. Again, like the last interaction method, is this a very appropriate method to use? Might not be, because the first interaction might have put this product into the consideration set of the customer, but again there might be other channels that would have given the kind of conviction, persuaded the customer to actually make the purchase. So last interaction and first interaction are simple methods, but they might not be as appropriate methods. So a better way of looking at it is to provide everybody with equal weightage. So that is the linear method or linear attribution models, where every different channel that the customer went through is provided with equal weightage. So the customer in this case went through 4 channels. The customer went to a search engine first, then the customer went into remarketing, then the customer went into an email campaign, and finally the customer went into an affiliate channel. So all of these 4 different channels are now going to be provided equal weightage. So you will say that 25% of this sale was because of the search engine campaign, 25% of this sale was because of the remarketing campaign, 25% of the sale was because of the email campaign, and 25% of the sale was because of the affiliate market. So rather than looking into the first 2 kinds of attribution models that we discussed about last interaction and first interaction, in this case everybody gets certain credit, everybody gets equal credit, and that is why it is known as the linear attribution model. So these 3 are very simple, very intuitive methods that you can use. The next 4 that I am going to discuss are a little bit more detailed, a little bit more comprehensive, some things that are customized in order to have a better understanding of how attribution works. The 4th way of attributing a sale is basically by using something that is known as time decay. Now time decay is a factor wherein the first interaction has been very old. So the customer has interacted with a channel much long ago. So the impact of that channel in today's conversion is going to be little, it is going to be much smaller as compared to the interaction that the customer did in a later period of time or the last interaction. So that is why in time decay you will have a certain decay that you will assign to the amount of time that the customer has spent from the first interaction to the last interaction. The last interaction will be given more weightage as compared to each interaction prior to that. So the first interaction will be given lesser weightage, maybe say 10%, the second interaction might be given a little bit more weightage like 30%, the next interaction might be given a little bit more weightage like 40%, and the last interaction, sorry, these numbers do not add up to 100%. So the first interaction can be given 10%, the second interaction can be given 20%, the third interaction can be given 30%, and the last interaction can be given 40% weightage. So as time moves on, the customer will get more and more, or the channels that the customer interacts closer to conversion are going to get more weightage as compared to the channels that the customer interacted much before the conversion actually happened. So this again is a much more comprehensive model as compared to the last interaction or the first interaction or the linear model, because in the last interaction model you are not giving credit to anybody else but the last person who interacted with the customer. In the first interaction you are not giving credit to anybody in the entire process, but only to the person who introduced the product to the customer. In linear you are suggesting that everybody has equal weightage, but in time decay you are bringing in the time factor and suggesting that it is the most recent channel that the customer used that has a greater weightage as compared to all the other channels which had interactions with the customer but did not have the right conviction or did not have the right persuasive capacity to convince the customer to make the purchase. The next attribution model is basically the position based model. Now in position based model we basically bring in a little bit of time decay and a little bit of the first interaction methods that we discussed. Here what we do is we understand that it is equally important that the customer is provided with information about the product, so that the customer is now getting aware of the product and starting to consider this certain product. It is also important that the customer is now given the right kind of persuasive messages, the right kind of conviction about buying a certain product. So both the first interaction and the last interaction will be given higher weightages, and everything in the middle might be given lesser weightages. So in this example, because there are 4 channels, you might give 30% weightage to the first interaction, which is the search engine, you might give 30% weightage to the last interaction, which was the affiliate, and you might give 20% weightage each for the remarketing and the email campaigns that were in the middle. So here, depending on the position that you think was most influential in creating a sale, you might be providing different weightages to different sets of channels that you have. So again, the models that we discussed were, firstly we discussed about last interaction, then we discussed about first interaction, then we discussed about linear model. These three were simple attribution models. Probably they are giving you some insights about how to provide credit to the customer, but they are not very comprehensive in providing a right kind of or a scientific way of identifying what kind of attribution works. Then we discussed about bringing in a factor of time, wherein we discussed about time decay models. We also discussed about bringing in the position that each channel had, and thereby we assign greater weightage to the first and last interaction and lesser weightages for everything that was in the middle. The next two models are a little bit more statistically driven. These models are more comprehensive. One of these models is based on the concept of causality, the other is based on the concept of correlation. So in statistics you would have discussed about regression. Now basically if you talk about linear regression, it is where you have a set of data points and you are trying to fit a straight line through all these data points so that you can minimize the error or minimize the amount of data that you lose by fitting this straight line across a set of data points. Now the customer has gone through four different channels in this case. There might be other customers who have gone through these 4 channels or a set of other channels across the entire process. Now if you are going to take all this data and aggregate all of this data and try to run a regression model, a linear or a non-linear regression model, you are going to get specific weights which basically signify how much importance do each of these platforms or each of these channels have in deciding whether or not the customer is going to get converted. Say for example, if you use these 4 channels and if you run a regression on the customer's purchase probability, or if you run a logistic regression about whether or not the customer purchased the product after having gone through all of these channels, you might be able to ascertain what are the regression coefficients for each of these 4 channels. So you might get what is the regression coefficient for the search engine, you might be getting the regression coefficient for email campaigns, for remarketing campaigns, and also for affiliate campaigns, and also for the other campaigns that you might have run. Say for example, social media campaigns and other platforms that we discussed earlier in other sessions. Now by doing a regression, you might be able to suggest what is the relative importance or what is the impact that each of these channels has on the conversion of the customer and the probability that the customer will buy the phone, and thereby you will be able to assign different weightages to different channels, and thereby you might be able to understand which channels work better and which channels do not work as well. Now the next and the last method is where you might use an experimental method. So rather than going with regression, rather than going with a correlational approach, here you might have different stimuli that are provided. So you might have one condition where the customer has used these 4 channels, you might have other control conditions where the customer is using only one of these channels, and thereby by comparing the probability and the time taken by customers to buy the mobile phone, by using multiple of these channels, you might be able to attribute to which of these channels is more important, similar to a regression method, but the methodology here is a little different. The way in which you collect data and use all of this data is a little different. So this again will help you in attributing the relative importance or the weights assigned to different channels. So again, it is important for you to understand that it is a real world problem that many companies and many marketers out there are really trying to tackle, wherein they are trying to understand how is or which is the right method to use in order to attribute the relative importance of each channel in crafting whether or not or in deciding whether or not it is important in the conversion of the customer. And in many cases it is important for you to understand what kind of campaigns you are running and what kind of campaigns are you doing, and thereby decide one of these models. So again, to summarize the models that we discussed, the first one was the last interaction model, the second one was the first interaction model, then we discussed about linear models, then we discussed about models which bring in the factor of time, so time decay model, we discussed about a position based model, we discussed about a regression based approach, and we discussed about an experimental approach. All of these different attribution models help you in assigning relative weights to different channels that the customer uses. But always remember that irrespective of whichever model that you use, the customer is necessarily going to always use multiple channels for arriving at the product purchase decision or the service consumption decision. So it is always important that you have some method by which you can now understand which of these channels should be given what kind of weight. The real world impact of this is, say for example, you have search engine campaigns and you have affiliate campaigns, and the customer has used both search engine campaigns and affiliate campaigns. Now if it is a simple situation like the one we discussed in the return on investment case, then you can probably say that okay, this was the return on investment on the search engine campaign. But now that the customer is using 2 channels or multiple channels, you might not be able to identify the return on investment or the impact of each of these channels unless you are able to attribute the sale to one particular channel, or what percentage of the conversion is because of a single channel. So only after you identify that okay, this conversion was because of this channel and this is the percentage that I will attribute to this channel, you unless you do so, you might not be able to create or capture the return on investment and other matrices in an appropriate manner and an accurate manner that is going to help you arrive at more investment decisions in the future. So if you do not do it, then you might be counting the same conversion for search engine marketing and also the same conversion for affiliate marketing. You might start investing more on search engines because you think that search engines are giving you more conversions, while your affiliates are also going to demand more money from you, because every time search engines are getting influencing a customer, there are affiliates who are also involved in the entire process. So that is why by using attribution models, now we are able to identify which channel has what importance in the conversion of a particular sale. And again it might be different for mobile phones versus automotives, might be different for insurance versus healthcare products. So depending on the kind of category of products and depending on the kind of characteristics of the customer that you are talking about, you might want to choose different attribution models. Thank you.